Hello, hello, hello. All right. This is day one, week one. Gonna be building a fitness tracker application. Um, just gonna be kind of doing a pair programming type of style. Um, Going through how I would be building this myself, and we're gonna just kind of do it as I go. Um, so, first thing, my name is Jason. My gamer tag is Soccerhead, as you can see. Um, been an avid gamer for a long time. My gamer tag is probably 20 years old now. I think I had it for the original Xbox when Xbox Live first came out, 2001, 2002, something like that. So, pretty old now. Um, I primarily play Apex Legends right now. Uh, Getting into Marvel Rivals with that since that just came out. That's fun. Um, yeah, so, back myself, I'm a senior software engineer. I've got about 10 years of experience doing development, um, done a bunch of different things. Currently, I'm working as a senior engineer at Northrop Grumman. I've worked at a few other companies. I've worked at Shopify for a little bit, worked at L3 Harris, and then worked for a couple of smaller local companies to where I am. Uh, so, about the project, I am a big exercise person. I've been exercising regularly for over 10 years. And the app that I used to use for tracking my exercises kind of stopped working and wasn't that great. So I decided I wanted to do my own, build my own app, um, and just do it as like a pair programming type of thing. Um, I'm going to be doing this in Python as my back end. And then once I get to the front end, the plan for right now is to use React as the library, um, preferably React Native. If you're not familiar, React Native gives you the ability to kind of build once and then it'll use its internal libraries to make it so that it works and is compatible with both iOS and Android. But we have kind of ways until we get to that point. So we'll just focus on the back end for right now. So the back end, I'm going to be using Python. I'm going to use Django as my um, library to interface with the database and to give me some nice little helper things. Django is great because there's quite a bit of open source libraries that you can use on top of it to build functionality with it. And it gives you a lot of really cool out of the box type of things that we're gonna leverage for a few things like the admin panel, users, that kind of stuff. Um, Next thing I'm gonna be using, I'm gonna also use GraphQL as my web service. Um, I've become a big fan of GraphQL. GraphQL is an alternative to using REST or SOAP. GraphQL is really nice because it gives you the ability to pick and choose what data you want at execution time. So I kind of what basically the way it works is you define all of the nodes, all the objects that you want to be able to query for, and then the fields that are available on it, any of the filtering that you want to provide for that node, and then at query time, the user can say, "Oh, I only care about this set of fields for this particular use case," and that's what GraphQL will return. Whereas with REST, you define what the data structure is going to look like, and it will always look like that for every response. So it's much more rigid with REST, and GraphQL gives you a little bit more flexibility. And the reason why I like that is because I don't want every field for every node or every object that I'm working with every single time. Sometimes I want this field, sometimes I want that field. Um, and so it's a little bit more flexible. Um, to continue with that, there's a to build GraphQL on Python. There's a library that I like. It's called Graphene, and they have their own little plugin that works with Django called Graphene Django. Um, it's got some nuances to it, but it's pretty good. I do like it. I have used it before, so gonna continue using that. Um, so yeah, so one thing that I thought would be helpful for this, and at least for me, was to kind of go over this as terms of like how I would do this. Like as a senior engineer, what am I looking for? The documentation that I would write when building out like a proposal for new functionality. So what I've done is kind of some pre-work, put together this little design documentation page outlining things that I want to use, uh, technologies, patterns, terminology. One thing that we're going to be doing, or I'm going to be leveraging, is this thing called domain driven development. And so, kind of first thing here, each model is going to have their own domain. And the idea of a domain is that I'm creating this single entry point, sole responsibility pattern where any work that I want to do that's related to a particular object, it's going to be within the domain. And the reason for that is I'm creating code that's very specific in what it's responsible for and limiting the scope of what we can do. Um, it makes it a lot easier to maintain. It makes it very specific in testing. I will write lots of unit tests for my domains, um, more so than the models, because the models are going to basically just provide the database structure, but the domains are going to be where most of the work happens. So my GraphQL schemas and queries will use, or not, sorry, the GraphQL schema will have queries and mutations. The queries and mutations will leverage the domains to get the objects that the user is requesting, and it will use the domain to also generate the records to populate into the database. Um, so, domain driven development is going to be a big part. That's really the big thing that we're going to try to focus on and keep organized like that, because it really will make it easier for us to keep track of when I'm building new functionality. There's a very specific home for everything. If if it's unclear if it should be in one domain versus another, I probably need to build a new domain specific for housing that type of functionality. Next thing, we definitely want to do bulkified as much as possible. The reason for that is we want to limit the number of times we're hitting the database. If we're updating, creating, deleting, whatever, multiple records at a time, we want to try to limit the number of actions that we're doing if we can. A lot of information so far. One thing that I've noticed that's really important with domain driven development is knocking out like this terminology. And the terminology is really kind of a breakdown of what the models are going to be and what they represent in the real world. So when I'm talking about an exercise, I'm talking about multiple things, right? An exercise in this terms of like what I'm actually doing when I go to the gym, right? I want to, an exercise is like a collection of things. I'm doing squats, I'm doing bench press, I'm doing deadlifts, whatever it may be. That is the exercise. But then when I'm tracking it in terms of like how I want to store that in the database, I need, I have, I want to like decouple what the movement is versus how the user or how the person performed it. And what I mean by that is like the movement is a bench press, but the exercise that that person performed on that day is a collection of the sets and reps that they did of that movement. So I guess that's a little confusing. But essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to, anytime I'm referring to like bench press, bar, squats, deadlifts, I'm going to call those the movements. Those are going to be my movements. And anytime I'm talking about the, on January 1st, I did 5 sets of bench press, that is going to be an exercise. And that's going to contain all the sets and rep information for that movement. And the reason why I'm separating it out like that is so I can have a foreign key in the database that ties all the exercises to a particular movement for a particular user. So that way I can just easily say, give me all the times this person has performed this movement, and I'll get a query back with all that data. Okay. So next one, repetition. If you're familiar with exercising, when you're doing a workout, you're typically breaking your workout into sets and reps of a particular movement. So reps is how many times you perform a particular movement. So how many times you do a bench press, how many times you do a squat, how many times you do a deadlift. The weight is how much added weight the person is using for it. We're gonna make it so that users can set their like have a preference in their profile if they're tracking their weight in pounds or kilograms, and it's just the amount of resistance they added during the repetition or the set. So it'll be like I bench pressed 225 pounds or I bench pressed 90 kilograms, that type of thing. A set is a collection of repetitions that a person performs in a short period of time. So typically a set will be like a standard set would be like we said here. It's a traditional weight, a set where they do the same amount of weight for each rep. And so a set kind of just like gives us a collection of those repetitions. A couple other set types that we'll want to add support for. Oh, I need to kind of move this actually. The webcam's kind of blocking this. Move it over here for right now. So not only is there a standard set, but I know personally I like to also do drop sets. And a drop set, if you're not familiar, is basically where I perform a certain number of repetitions at a set weight. I rack the bar or the dumbbell. I reduce the amount of weight and I do more reps. And then I can repeat that drop phase where I reduce the weight and perform more reps as many times as I want. Typically, I'll do like 2 to 3 drop sets depending on the exercise. So we'll need to take that into consideration and how we want to track that type of recording eventually. And then a rest pause set, very similar to a drop set, but instead of reducing the weight, you maintain the same amount of weight and you take a short pause. So I'll typically count down from 10 or 15, depending on how out of wind I am, when I perform a rest pause set. So the idea is I do a bench press of 225, I do it for 5 reps. I rack the bar. I take a 15-second break. I unrack the weight. I do 3 reps and I rack it back, take another pause, and then I do another 2 reps and then I'm done. And that's kind of like a rest pause set. Excuse me. Then a superset. Superset is kind of when you perform 2 or more exercises back to back without a rest. Typically, good thing would be like opposite exercises. So maybe I'll do a bench press and a tricep extension or something like that, or I'll do a bench press in a row. Things that are I don't typically want to do exercises that are working the same muscle back to back. Okay. And then here, exercise and what we're going to be using is going to be a collection of the sets that a person performed on a particular day. Then a workout is going to be a collection of all the exercises that they performed within a specific time window. So we'll track a start and stop time for a particular workout. We're going to have a workout template. The idea is that we want to allow users to be able to go into the system and set up a template of the type of exercises that they want to perform with a schedule. So I want to say day 1, I'm going to do, like, here's an example of my template that I kind of follow right now. I do a push-pull split. So day 1, I do a push exercises. So say day 1, I'll do heavy squats. I'll do 5 sets of 6 squats. And then after that, I'll do close grip bench press for 5 sets of 6. And then I'll do normal bench press, 3 sets of 10. And then I'll do, what's the other thing? Oh, I'll do like a dumbbell shoulder press for 3 sets of 12. And that's kind of my workout. So what I want to do is I want to let users create a template where they say that's the workout, like that's a workout that I'm going to consistently perform, so that way they can set it up in a schedule and reuse it over and over again. And so that way it's preloaded. They're able to just say, I want to load this particular workout, and then it'll automatically have all the cardio, stretching, whatever. It'll have all the exercises, the reps that they've pre-populated that they want in the template, and so on. And then when they go to actually track it, we'll convert the template into an actual workout and store it separately in the database. Hopefully that makes sense. Then a workout plan is going to be a collection of workouts that take place over multiple weeks and days. The idea with the plan is that the user should be able to go in and say, day 1, I want to do push. Day 2, I want to do pull. And then day 3, I want to do legs. Day 4, I want to do cardio. And so they'll be able to specify what workout template they want for each of those days. So that way, when they open the app, they'll say, oh, the app will say, today is day 3. Oh, today is our leg day. And it'll show them the workout template that they've already created that's specific to the day that they're on in the plan. Then just some kind of but follow on logic. So 1 rep max, we're going to use this little formula. 1 rep max can be calculated 2 ways. Either the person physically works up until they can only do 1 rep of a particular exercise, or there's various formulas that you can do to generate or calculate a 1 rep max based off of, I know I can consistently bench 225 10 times, right? So based off of that, I can put 225 in, 10, and I can generate what my 1 rep max would be based off of those values. Another one that we're going to track is going to be volume. Volume is going to be it's going to give us a good metric for performance. in the way that it'll show us how much volume a person lifted for a particular day for a particular muscle group. And volume is just calculated by multiplying the number of reps by the weight that they used for each set and then adding up all those sets together. So if you do five sets of six, each set is the weight times six, and then you add up all those values into a total, and that gives you the volume. And so the volume is kind of nice because it gives us a good metric of performance, because you can see some days you do high volume, some days you're going to do low volume where you're working on a 1 rep max. It just depends. All right. I don't want to go through all of these, but these are kind of some use cases that I have outlined, talking about the different types of actions that a user should be able to perform, types of things that they should be able to see, so on. And then I've also provided here at the bottom a little plant UML diagram of kind of the database model that I'm thinking right now, and how that's going to work and fit together. So you see here, we're going to have a movement table, and we're going to, thankfully I found some data sets online with a bunch of details about different exercises, aka movements, that we're going to be able to use. And it has these kind of details already in them, so we're not having to build out that table ourselves. So we're going to have a movement, and then we're going to have an exercise. An exercise is kind of just like a joining object, because we can have multiple exercises where we're performing the same movement. And the reason why I'm doing it this way is I want to be able to provide any notes. I want to give the user the opportunity to store any notes for that particular exercise on that particular day. Then we're going to have sets. Sets are going to reference the exercise. So that way the exercise is going to have a collection of all the sets that were performed as a group. And we'll use it like that. We'll have a sequence number. The sequence number will be helpful so that way we can track, okay, I did a warm-up set, then set 2, 3, 4. So that way we can show the user in order in which they performed them, because that'll be important. Then we're going to have a workout. Workout's going to be kind of our top level object, where it's going to be tied to the user that's performing it, when they started and stopped it. And then this is probably going to get changed a little bit, but for right now, we're going to kind of let it go with where it is. And we're going to have a template. The template's going to kind of just indicate if it was a pre-made template or if it was something that they created the day that they're at the gym doing their workout. We're going to have a workout plan. This is where it's kind of, I'm still not 100% sure on how it's going to work out, but this is what I have right now. So we're going to have a workout plan for the user. We'll probably have some kind of unique identifier for the plan. Maybe it'll have a name. Not sure yet. One sec. So we're going to have a workout plan, and then we're going to have some kind of workout plan block. And the reason I want to do it in a block is there's a couple ways that we could track a workout plan. The way I'm seeing it is users could either do it like they just want to plan a week, and then every week they're going to do the same thing with minimal changes, or maybe they're going to have a month where they want to plan the block as a month, and they say day 1 here's this, day 2 this other thing, and so on, and they're going to plan it on a monthly basis, and they'll repeat that month every 4 weeks or whatever. And so the block, not sure 100% I'm sold on it yet, but that's kind of how I'm envisioning it so far. And then a day, excuse me, the workout plan day, very straightforward. Exactly, it's going to tie back to the block, and it's going to tell us what workout they plan on performing for that day, and it'll be tied to a template. All right. So that's kind of a breakdown of technology we're using, projects that we're trying to build, terminology, technologies, some of the patterns, all that kind of good stuff to get started. Quick and easy, 20 minutes. So, personally, I'm kind of going to run this as I would if I were actually at work and how we do things. I'm gonna build user stories. I'm gonna assign them. I'm gonna move them through the Kanban board. I'm gonna create branches as I would. I'm gonna do pull requests. Nobody else is gonna be really reviewing it, but at least it's gonna be there. Um, yeah. So first thing. Oh, let's actually go over here. So here's my VS Code. Here, let's actually pull this up here too. So we can see I'm in I have a GitHub repository. I've kind of temporarily, or I don't know, coined the name that I'm going to call this Awaken Fit. If anybody's a anime fan, there's the show Solo Leveling. Season 2 is coming out soon, by the way. The idea in the show is that people gain powers. Once they gain powers, they're called awakened. And so I thought it was a cool name to go along with this project, kind of like awakening our fitness kind of journey is the goal, the name. So I have my GitHub repo cloned here, and I haven't really done anything yet. I set up a project, TOML, pretty standard Python format, and I'm using the pre-commit hooks to do some stuff for me. I'm going to be using the black auto formatter for all my code, and I'm going to use isort just to make the imports a little bit nicer. But other than that, you can see I'm going to have a front end and a back end. I'm going to use a single repository for all of my code. So there's really nothing in here yet. So we are good to get started. So actually, I'm going to make their desktop here because I like to be able to swap between these pretty easily. So I've already written a few. I don't know what this guy. I've already written a few like kind of user stories on what I'm looking for and what I want to do, and provided some kind of nice details on here outlining what's going on. So we can go ahead and get started. Actually, let me move this to in progress so that way we can see it. Okay. So first thing we need to do is obviously like set up our Django project. We haven't done anything. Do we have? I don't think we have. Oops. There we go. Okay. So I haven't even done anything yet. So if you're not familiar with Python, one thing that they really recommend is that you should be using virtual environments. Virtual environments help create like a little container to keep all your dependencies for a particular project isolated and away from the rest of your like base install for your actual machine. So as you can see in my terminal, I'm currently in a virtual environment called Awaken Fit, and I haven't installed anything here yet. So if I can do a pip install Django, And this should get us installed and set up with Django and all of its dependencies. So now if I run this again, we see we're on the latest version 5.14. So now from my user story, I should be able to start running some of these steps that I wrote out before. So wait, let's just double check where are we in the folder structure. So let's go to the backend folder. We want to run these in the backend because we want to keep everything that's Django related in the backend folder so that way it's isolated. So let's do Django admin start project, and we're going to call it core, and we want it to be in the current folder that we're in. So Django's cool. It's going to do a bunch of stuff for us and build out a bunch of things for us for free, so we don't have to worry about it. And so if we actually go back to our project, we can see here it created all these files for us. So it gives us a nice little manage.py file to be able to start like a development server. It'll also give us the ability to run migrations and build out the database and that kind of thing. And then some nice little settings. What do we have in here? Yeah. This one, we'll update this, but we won't really touch anything in the WSGI file, if I remember correctly. Cool. So let's do a Python manage. We're going to do a start app, and we're going to name it Awaken Fit. And so what this will do is it'll create another folder within our backend, as we'll see here in a second. That gives us kind of the default objects or files for a lot of these a lot of the things that we're going to need. And so most of them are pretty much empty. They don't really do anything yet. But yeah, this is nice little stuff that we get out of the box by using the Django framework. Cool. So let's do this. So we just want to see. Okay, so it's, because I'm in the subfolder. So let's do a pip. Yeah, we'll do a pip freeze. If you're not familiar, a pip freeze basically within Python says, hey, give me all the non-standard library modules that have been installed, and it's going to give me the versions and everything of those. And then by providing the little like greater than sign, we're essentially doing what's called like carroting, and we're forwarding all that output to a file. So if we actually do pip freeze without, it's just going to give us a text list with all the versions for everything. But by doing this, we're sending all of this output instead to this requirements.txt file. And that's kind of the standard formatting for Python, is to use this requirements.txt file. The idea with it is that if anybody were to clone my repository and wanted to get their project set up, they could create a virtual environment, and then they can do they could do something like this. They could do pip-r requirements.txt. Oh no, it's pip install. Oops. Pip install -r requirements. And basically what that does is pip will then say, hey, you've provided me with a requirements file. I'm going to go through and I'm going to look at this list of stuff, and I'm going to install each of those versions as apps or modules within the virtual environment that I'm in. So we should now see nice little txt file. Perfect. And it shows us all the versions of all the apps that we've already installed in our virtual environment. So let's go back here. Let's do another git status. So let's go, we actually want to be up one level because this is the root of our repository. So we're going to do a git add. Oops. Yeah. We're going to do backend /star. And so what this is saying is I want to add everything that's in the backend folder. And I want to also add the pre-commit config YAML. So if I do a status again, we'll see these are all the files that were created. Cool. So we'll do a git commit. And what is this? Oh, I made a mistake. I forgot one crucial step, which is fine. We'll backtrack a little bit. This isn't a big deal. So I forgot that I needed to create a branch first. So right now, the branching structure that I use is the root branch is called the main branch. And then I have everything off of that on a parallel branch that is called develop. Develop is going to be kind of my trunk branch that I'm going to use for everything. And then once I get to a point where I'm comfortable with what I have, I'm going to do what's called a release. And I'm going to pull develop into main. And now main will have will have everything again. And I will create a tag at that point on the main branch. And it will call be release whatever version number I want for it. So what I forgot to do though is I forgot to branch off of develop with the work that I wanted to do here. So I'm going to create a branch. You can do this in the local git on your command line, but I'm going to do it in here just because it's kind of nice. I'm going to create the branch and I'm going to do this. I'm going to do git checkout. Oh, I got to do a git. And then I can do a git checkout. Okay. Okay. There. We've now corrected the issue. And we can see still, like, I didn't lose anything by switching to this branch because it wasn't really important yet. Cool. So now what I can do is do a commit. And we're going to just do setup Django project as the commit message for my commit. And so this is going to be interesting. I set up pre-commit hooks for this repository that should run the black and the isort on it. So we'll see what happens if this commit actually works or not. So this is the first time I'm running this, so okay, so I see it's doing some stuff. So I haven't run this. This is the first time running this. So maybe it'll take a little bit on the first go. Grab a sip of water while we wait. Oh, okay, I see. It's installing isort and it's installing black. Oh, cool. And then we can see here it ran the check YAML, fix end of files. Cool. And it ran private keys. This one, not sure how this passed because there's definitely a private key in there. Considering we have the default secret key, but that's fine. So let's see. So we should see nothing in our status. Okay, so if we do a git push, that should push up to our repository. So let's go back here. Let's go to pull requests. Okay, we see the pull request is, or you see like the notification that a new branch was, or an update was pushed. Let's do, cool. So let's just do this, create a pull request. And we should be able to see all the files that we changed on here. So we see our pre-commit hooks. This is what we saw that got run in our little terminal up here. That's these. That's what this file is. Cool. And then the rest of this is really just default. It's all default boilerplate that Django provides to us, which is fine for right now. I just wanted to show in the requirements txt. Cool. Let's double check how it's formatted. Let's look at our story. So we wanted a backend folder, and we should have requirements txt within it, and the manage. Oh, and we also have a project toml. Cool. Then underneath that, we should have core and awake and fit. Perfect. And then the rest of that is all what we get out of the box. Perfect. So we're going to go here. Since I'm the owner of this repository, I'm just going to go ahead and merge the pull request. Okay. I don't need this branch anymore, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete it, since it's not important to me after that. So what I'm going to do is git checkout develop. I'm going to do a git pull, and this is going to pull down the latest version of develop. And I'm going to do git branch, and I'm going to do a git branch -d. And I'm going to delete that feature that I just merged, because I don't need it locally either. Cool. So if we do a git branch again, it's not there anymore. Now, something that I guess I didn't think about mentioning is branches. I like to follow. Some places use it, some places don't, but I like to follow the convention where like I prefix new work under feature. So you notice here, like this one I wrote as a prefix feature. Anytime there's like something that I wrote that ends up creating a bug, I'll do prefix it with bug or bug fix. Sometimes I'll do hot fix. It just depends. But I like to prefix mine typically with feature just to show that it's like when I'm building out new work. So if we go back up here, cool. I didn't realize it did that, but this already got moved to done since the pull request got closed. Cool. Nice. So do we want to start support for that? Or I'm going to start actually doing the models first, just because I need to look up a little bit on the environment variables because I don't remember some specifics. Okay, so we're going to go here, create our branch again. We'll do a feature as we did before. We'll do that. We're just going to copy this time, see what happens, and paste. Cool. So it checked, it pulled down, oh wait, I'm so silly. Oh man, I messed up. This needed to be here instead. So let's figure out, can I delete this? Because I don't want this branch. Because you see here, this doesn't have anything. Or wait. What did I do? Oh, I see. I was going too fast. Okay. That's fine. So we'll continue with where we are, and then I'll fix it later. Okay, so we're on here. So let's see, branch. So we're on build app models. Okay, so if we come, don't need this. So one thing we're going to want to do is, first thing we need to do is we need to come in here and we need to add our app as a project that we're including. And I believe if I just do, is it like, I think it's awake, and then I need to do apps. I believe that's right. Because this essentially tells it to look into this guy, and this is going to tell it um, how to load it. So let's do that. And we can check by coming over here, and if we do a Python manage, oops, we need to go into backend. If we do Python manage run server, okay, let's do this. Python manage make migrations. So if you haven't done Django before, Django likes it. They give you a bunch of data objects by default, like this stuff. And so we want to do the make migrations first, and then we can do Python manage migrate. And essentially what that does is it applies all the default models to our database. So for us, we're doing local development. And so we'll see now there's this like database SQLite file that got created. So if we come back here and we do manage run server, this will give us a little local host, so we can do local host. Cool. So this is all set up, or at least it's working as expected. So let us come in here. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to get rid of this file, and I'm going to create I'm going to convert it into a module. So Django is nice in, I mean, this is Python just in general, that any file, individual file with the same name, so models.py, I can convert it into a folder with an init that basically just makes it so I can, if models.py was like 1,000 lines long with a bunch of different stuff, I can split those all into individual files within this folder. And then as long as I write the init properly, the code won't know the difference. So it makes it a lot easier because I'm going to have quite a few models based off of the database diagram that we showed earlier that I want to build. And I don't want to have all of that in one file. So for simplicity's sake and like keeping myself sane, I'm going to have individual files for each of the models that I plan on generating. So let's actually go back here to our project. Nope, not what I meant. I'm going to go here, here, here. Cool. So let's start. We'll just start with like some of these up here because these are the main ones. The plan stuff will be nice eventually, but for right now, I don't think it's really important to start doing that yet. So let's go ahead. I'm going to do a new file, and we're going to call this movement.py. Now, I forget the convention with Python if it's best to, I think I'm going to go ahead and just call mine singletons, single value variables, just because it'll be a little bit easier. And what I'm actually going to do, oops, I go to that. I don't care about the isort repo. I actually have a Django project that I've been working on and off for a while. And I can actually use this as a reference point for some of this stuff. And you can see I have my folder structure very similar to how, excuse me, I plan on doing it here. So we'll go in here and we'll just look at one of these guys. And we'll just use this as like a starting point because it'll make it really easy to go forward. So we'll do that. And we're going to actually call this movement. Actually, So we're going to call it movement. This is the model to hold the details around a particular movement a person performs while exercising. Did I spell that right? I think so. One thing I actually am going to do first is there is a way to create a new base like object. I call this like base object. Let me just double check how I can do this. Django model inheritance. Yeah, I looked this up before. So let's look at the Django documentation. Because there is a way. Yeah. See, so if I create this base class, like common info or whatnot, and I can provide this key that it's abstract. Basically, what I want to do is I want to have all of my models. I want to have this like date created and date last modified field. And so instead of having add this for every single object, I created in this base object. Everybody extends base object. Everybody gets it by default when they get created. So I don't have to include these two lines on every single file. And if I were to extend that and build anything else after the fact, then I don't have to worry about it'll happen. It'll happen automatically for me. So we'll call this base object. We're going to copy these two because those are the two that we want. And we're going to put those there. Cool. So now I have this base object guy. I like to have a new line at the end of every file. Maybe that makes me weird. I think it's kind of the convention. So now, if I come up here, and if I do a from dot base object import base object, and I'm actually going to change this guy to base object. And so now what I've done is I've changed the parent class of the movement object to base object. I wonder if I should change it to, I'm going to actually change this to base model. There. That makes more sense since we're working with models. Base model, copy this here, there. So now movements parent class is base model. I'm going to get these two fields out of the box because of it. Great. We're going to delete this other boilerplate that I've provided. So let's look back here at what I put in my documentation. So we're going to have a name. Okay, let's get, so we're going to have a name, a description. So description, how many characters do we think this should be max? I'll put like 500 for now. If anything, I can come back and change it later. Now, I'm going to have enumerations for a few things. Primary muscle group, secondary muscle group, equipment type, exercise type. So let's actually come over here because I know for a fact I have some of these examples. Cool. So I have an example here where I have a character field that uses enumerations right here for format. And so what I can do is I'm going to grab all of the, well, I'm not going to grab that. I'm going to grab this because this is what I care about. And I'm going to delete all these guys. So what's our first enumeration that we care about? Primary muscle group. Oops, that's not how you spell group. So we need to provide a bunch of choices. So let's do this. Let's look it up. Muscle groups. Okay, easy. So let's do, what do we have? Biceps. Is it with a T? No, I always get confused. And so what we want to do is these need to be, I believe they need to be, okay, just strings. Do biceps, and then we'll do back. And the reason why the variable name is all caps is because it's a static string and we don't plan on ever changing it. So I just want to make sure that it's separated. Biceps, back, glutes. We have hamstring. I guess it's hamstring, singular. Then quadriceps. Then shoulders. We've got abdominals. Now, the nice thing about creating all these is I'm going to be able to use it for both the primary and the secondary muscle group. No problem. We're just going to call, instead of pectorals, we're going to call it chest. Actually, I want to have these in order just because it makes it easier to find stuff later if I need to. The arm muscle, I've never heard of that. I think that's more of a collection of things, but that's okay. Triceps. Then calves. So let's put calves up here. So this is lats. So we'll do, see, the back is interesting because the back has a bunch of different muscles in it, right? So let's do, what's the other one? Where am I? Trap. Oh, geez. Don't want to try to spell that one. Convert this to all caps. Man, trapezius. Just call them traps. Forearm. Oops. Forearm. Let's do HIJKLMNOP. Okay. So let's do lats here. And we'll just call this lats instead of putting this name. That's crazy. Deltoid muscle, basically your shoulders. Let's do, how do we want to do it? We'll just leave back as it is for right now. I think there's going to be some changes that we'll need to potentially change on that, but that's fine. So now what we need to do is do group choices.